So, this is a big one for me. I was talking about goosebumps. Here we go again. Me and this guy, me and Chuck started before we owned the UFC. I met Chuck through a jiu-jitsu guy named John Lewis who had fought in the UFC. I was introduced to Chuck Liddell. Nobody knew who the hell Chuck Liddell was, and the UFC didn't even want him back at that time. And they didn't think he had, I don't know, whatever they thought he didn't have. When I met this guy, Lorenzo and I put together this training camp up in Big Bear, right when we bought the company. And a bunch of guys went up there, Tito, Rico Rodriguez, Chuck Liddell, Tiki at the time, who else? A ton of guys we brought up there. While the training was going on up there, you know, I saw Chuck Liddell and I knew this guy was a badass. And as we started to, you know, once we bought the UFC and we started to, you know, get out there on the road, start to try to educate people and sell the sport, Chuck Liddell was on the road with me a lot. We spent a lot of time on the road together, you know, traveling to all these cities, doing radio appearances and appearances in bars and small time things, just anything we could do to get the sport out there. And this guy has been more than just a, you know, a big superstar to us and a big fighter, you know, and a guy who sells pay-per-views. This guy's been such a close friend to both Lorenzo and I, and a true partner. A true partner. Chuck Liddell is the type of guy, and this is the reason everybody loved him so much, you know, he'll fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. He didn't want easy opponents. He wanted all the guys that were considered the best in the world. And he would do anything to help in any way he could. You know, to sit up here, it's hard for me to, I'm getting all messed up now talking about it, but this guy, I've known him for probably 12 or 13 years, and he's one of the big reasons we are where we are today. And when I was watching that video yesterday, you know, those of you that have been here through, you know, our success over the last 9 years, there was nothing like going to a Chuck Liddell fight, man. When Chuck was in the main event and, you know, his music came on and he was coming out, the place was going crazy, and you knew somebody was getting knocked out that night. You just got, you know, it was like almost that Tyson aura that he had. But on the flip side, one of the nicest guys you've ever met. If you ever bump into him anywhere, anytime, he's the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He'll take pictures, he'll hang out. You bump into Chuck Liddell, you're probably going out to a club that night, I can tell you that. All right, he's bringing you with him, and you'll end up becoming one of his buddies. You want to say anything?
You know, I feel the same way as Dana. This is a very emotional day for us, and there's nobody that's more deserving to be in the UFC Hall of Fame than Chuck Liddell. This is a guy that has defined a sport. When you think about the UFC, he personifies the UFC. Whenever anybody sees that logo, I think they think of Chuck Liddell. And he will forever be a part of the UFC. He will always be tied to us in every way, shape, or form. And as Dana said, you know, we started a long time ago. We've known Chuck for a long time. And he's a special person because he never did this for the fame. He never did it for the money. Chuck is one thing and one thing only. He's a fighter. He's as 100% of a fighter as anybody I've ever met. He's never turned down a fight. The happiest I've ever seen him is when he's getting ready to go into the octagon and fight. It's just something that he was born with. It's in his DNA. And you know, you think about all the great fighters in history, you know, and you cross over to boxing, you talk about Joe Louis and Muhammad Ali and Roberto Duran and Ray Leonard and, you know, Mike Tyson. And you know what? Chuck Liddell as well. He's in that category. He's the pioneer of this sport. So